Ever try picturing Earth like, I don't know, a planet-sized furnace?
Oh, yeah.
Just molten rock everywhere. Temperatures that would make a volcano blush.
Yeah.
Not exactly a place you'd plan a family vacation to, right?
No.
But, and here's the wild part, that fiery chaos, that's where our story begins. We're diving into this excerpt, Shaping a Planet, how Earth became home to life. And we're going to trace this unbelievable journey of our planet from molten rock to, well, us. We're talking billions of years.
Yeah.
Cooling, oceans forming, the tiniest spark of life. It's going to be a wild ride, so buckle up.
Okay.
So picture this. 4.5 billion years ago, Earth is basically a giant ball of molten material. I mean, how did it ever cool down enough for anything, let alone life, to even exist?
Well, you see, those early years, it was just this time of intense change, transformation. The forces that actually created our planet. Like, think about those colossal collisions in space.
Yeah.
They held the key to its cooling as well.
You mean all that cosmic debris raining down on Earth?
Exactly.
I'd imagine those constant impacts weren't exactly helping with the whole cooling down thing, were they?
Well, it was a bit of a double-edged sword, right?
Okay.
Because on the one hand, those impacts, they generated just an incredible amount of heat.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they delivered these elements, these compounds, that were absolutely crucial for the planet to evolve.
Okay.
Over time, though, the frequency of these impacts, it decreased. And that gave Earth a chance to, kind of catch its breath.
Yeah.
And for that surface to finally start to solidify.
Okay, so less cosmic bombardment, cooler surface. I'm sensing a but coming.
Right.
There's got to be more to it, right?
You're absolutely right, there is. There's another crucial player in all of this, and that's the sun.
Right.
Earth's distance from the sun, it seems so perfectly fine-tuned for life, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about the warmth. That distance also allowed for this process that was about to become extremely important. Volcanic outgassing.
Volcanic outgassing. Okay, now we're talking. What is that and what role did it play?
So volcanic outgassing, essentially it's those early volcanoes, and they're releasing massive amounts of gases from Earth's interior.
Okay.
Now, these weren't the kind of gases that you or I would want to breathe. We're talking water vapor, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, that kind of stuff. But even though we couldn't breathe it, these gases, they played this really pivotal role in creating the planet's early atmosphere.
Okay, so we've traded a molten surface for a toxic atmosphere. Feels like a lateral move at best, no?
Maybe not the best upgrade yet.
Right.
But think of it like this. That early atmosphere, as inhospitable as it might seem to us now, that was a crucial step towards a habitable planet. And there was a key ingredient already up there, all that water vapor.
Okay.
As Earth continued to cool, something incredible happened.
Let me guess, rain?
Rain. But not just any rain. We're talking torrential downpours.
Yeah.
And these didn't last for days or weeks. We're talking millions of years. The ultimate deluge. It filled Earth's basins and created the first oceans.
Talk about a long shower.
Yeah.
But seriously, that's incredible. We go from a fiery inferno to a planet with actual oceans.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty major upgrade. I have to ask, though, what was so special about these early oceans? Weren't they still crazy hot and toxic?
Oh, they were. But they were also the key to a more stable and ultimately habitable planet. These huge bodies of water, they became Earth's thermostat. They absorbed and distributed the heat. Because you got to think, even the slightest variation in temperature back then, it could have made life impossible.
So the oceans acted as this planetary temperature control system.
Precisely.
That's pretty crucial.
Absolutely. And they provided this stable environment that was necessary for the next and perhaps most remarkable chapter in Earth's story, the emergence of life.
Okay, here's where things get really interesting. Life on Earth. Where did it all begin?
Picture this. Deep down in those oceans, no sunlight, under unimaginable pressure. About 3.5 billion years ago, that's where we see the first signs of life.
So not exactly a tropical paradise.
No.
What kind of life could even survive in those conditions?
We're not talking about complex creatures here.
Yeah.
These were single-celled organisms, microscopic, really just blobs of life. But they were about to change everything.
These tiny life forms, these were our ancestors.
Exactly.
The Adam and Eve of the microbial world.
Precisely. And, as unassuming as they were about to embark on this journey that would ultimately transform the planet and pave the way for all life, including us.
So we've gone from this molten inferno to a planet with oceans.
Right.
And then life actually emerges in those
It's
oceans.
amazing.
It is mind-blowing to think about that these single-celled pioneers were just the first act in the story of life on Earth.
Yeah.
But how do we go from that single-celled simplicity to all the incredible diversity we see today?
Right.
Plants, animals, I mean, that feels like a pretty big leap.
It is a huge leap, and it takes billions of years.
Right.
But each step kind of sets the stage for the next.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is, even with those first single-celled organisms, you start to see the power of evolution at work.
In what way? I mean, what were these early organisms doing that set the stage for such incredible change?
Well, they were adaptable.
Okay.
You have to remember, that early Earth, it was still a far cry from the planet we know.
Right.
The atmosphere was nothing like what we breathe today, and yet these organisms, they found a way not just to survive, but to thrive.
It really makes you realize that what we think of as normal or habitable even is all relative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And these early life forms were masters of adaptation.
Okay.
They were able to extract energy from their surroundings, in ways we can barely fathom.
Wow.
And in doing so, they actually began to change those very surroundings.
They were shaping the planet, even back then.
They were.
How so?
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis. That's how
Yeah.
plants use sunlight to create energy.
Exactly.
Oh,
But long before plants even existed, these early microorganisms, they had already figured it out.
wow.
They were absorbing carbon dioxide, which was abundant in the early atmosphere, and releasing something else,
Yeah.
oxygen.
So they were essentially pumping out the very air we breathe today. Talk about an impact.
It was a game changer.
Yeah.
Over millions of years, they slowly but surely transformed the atmosphere, and that made it possible for life as we know it to evolve.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we're still talking about single-celled organisms at this point.
Right.
When do we start to see, the evolution of more complex life?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
Because over time, these single-celled organisms, they give rise to more complex cells,
Okay.
cells with a nucleus, much like our own cells today.
Okay.
And these more sophisticated cells, they eventually led to the first multicellular organisms.
Multicellular, so no longer just a single cell, but multiple cells working together.
Exactly.
That feels like a big jump in complexity.
It was a monumental leap.
Yeah.
And, it paved the way for a whole new level of organization, specialization within living organisms. From there, the pace of evolution, it just continued to accelerate.
Okay, I'm picturing tiny multicellular blobs in the ocean.
Right.
Not exactly walking out of the water and onto land yet, are they?
Not quite.
Yeah.
But they were part of this explosion of life in the oceans, an event that we call the Cambrian explosion, about 540 million years ago.
Okay.
Imagine this, over a span of just a few million years, and, geologically speaking, that's like a blink of an eye.
Right.
This stunning array of new life forms just burst onto the scene.
An explosion of life. Tell me more.
It was an era of incredible experimentation, diversification.
Okay.
We saw the emergence of the first true animals with hard shells, eyes, complex body plans.
Oh, wow.
Creatures like trilobites, with those segmented bodies and multifaceted eyes.
Trilobites. Yeah, those things look like something out of a science fiction movie.
They were fascinating creatures.
Yeah.
And, their emergence during the Cambrian explosion, it really marked a turning point in the history of life, because that's when life on Earth went from, relatively simple to amazingly complex and diverse,
Wow.
setting the stage for the incredible variety we see today.
The Cambrian explosion, it really does sound like this wild party in the oceans.
It was.
But what about dry land? When did life decide to conquer that frontier?
That's another fascinating chapter in our story.
Okay.
Around 500 million years ago, we see the first plants starting to colonize the land.
Wow.
And remember those oxygen-producing photosynthetic pioneers we talked about?
Yes.
Well, their descendants were about to take on a new challenge, surviving and thriving out of the water.
It makes you wonder what possessed that first brave little alga to venture out of the water and think, well, this is different.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It was no easy feat.
Hey.
They had to adapt to this completely new environment. Dry land, harsh sunlight, and of course, a lack of that buoyancy they were used to in the water.
I bet those early land plants were tough cookies.
Oh, they were.
What do they even look like?
They were quite different from the plants that we see today.
Okay.
Imagine, kinda simple moss-like plants clinging to rocks
Yeah.
and gradually spreading across that barren landscape.
Okay.
But their arrival on land was a game changer.
Right.
Because it set off this chain reaction that would transform the planet yet again.
Okay, I'm sensing another chain reaction coming here.
Oh, yeah.
What happened next? So we've got plants, they're taking root on land. They're pumping out even more oxygen,
Yeah.
making the atmosphere more breathable.
Right.
It feels like Earth is finally starting to resemble the planet we know and love. But I have a feeling we're not quite out of the woods yet, are we?
You're right. The journey of life on Earth, it's definitely not a straight line.
Right.
It's got its incredible highs, but also these devastating lows.
Right.
And one of those lows, as you might have guessed, is the topic of mass extinctions.
Mass extinctions. Yeah, not exactly a lighthearted topic, but definitely a pivotal one.
Right.
What kind of events are we talking about here?
We're talking about events that are so cataclysmic, so disruptive to the Earth's systems,
Right.
that they wipe out a significant portion of all life on the planet.
Wow.
Imagine like a global reset button,
Yeah.
just dramatically changing the course of evolution.
A global reset button. That's a chilling way to put it.
Yeah.
What could even cause that kind of devastation?
Well, the causes, they vary,
Okay.
but they're all events of just unimaginable scale.
Okay.
Take, for example, the Permian Triassic extinction.
Okay.
This was about 252 million years ago,
Okay.
and it's believed to have been caused by this series of massive volcanic eruptions.
Okay.
We're talking eruptions that spewed out enough lava to cover an area, get this, the size of Australia.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine the amount of ash and toxic gases released into the atmosphere?
That's hard to even fathom. What kind of impact did that have on life?
Devastating.
Yeah.
Scientists estimate that around 96% of marine species
Wow.
and 70% of terrestrial species just disappeared.
Wow. Those numbers are just staggering.
It's huge.
It makes that, extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs look like a minor blip.
Exactly.
It really puts into perspective how vulnerable, life on Earth can be.
Yeah.
But you said that mass extinctions are like this global reset button.
Right.
So what happens after an event like that?
Well, that's what I think is so fascinating.
Okay.
Because as devastating as these extinction events are,
Yeah.
they also create opportunities.
Okay.
They leave behind these ecological niches,
Okay.
which are basically, an organism's role and resources within an ecosystem.
Right.
They leave those vacant, and into those vacancies rush these new forms of life,
Wow.
ready to adapt and evolve.
So it's like those forest fires that clear out the underbrush, and then that makes way for new growth.
Exactly. And that's what we see time and again throughout Earth's history.
Wow.
Take the extinction of the dinosaurs, for example.
Right.
A catastrophic event for them, no doubt. But it opened the door for our own ancestors, mammals, to thrive.
So we have that asteroid to thank for our very existence.
In a way, yes.
Oh.
With the dinosaurs gone, mammals, which were pretty small and insignificant back then,
Right.
they suddenly had the chance to diversify, evolve, and eventually dominate many of those ecological niches that were left open.
It's incredible how these massive events, these events that just seem so destructive, they ultimately paved the way for our own existence.
It's a remarkable story, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, from molten rock to oceans to single-celled organisms to the dinosaurs to mass extinctions to
Well,
and it's this incredible journey, and it reminds us that change is the only constant,
right.
both for life on Earth and for the planet itself.
It really puts things in perspective.
It does.
This deep dive has taken us on quite the journey.
It has.
From that fiery birth of our planet to the emergence of life and all the wild twists and turns in between.
Absolutely.
It makes you appreciate the incredible chain of events that led to our very existence.
Right.
And of course, that delicate balance that makes life on Earth even possible.
It's amazing.
And as we continue to learn more about our planet's past,
Yeah.
we gain a deeper understanding not only of where we come from, but also where we might be headed.
Absolutely.
So on that note, here's a final thought-provoking question to leave you with. If even a single event in Earth's 4.5 billion year history had unfolded differently, how might our planet and life itself look today?